Hello viewers, welcome back to the Moose Mobile Auto Repair channel, and today we're working on a 2010 Toyota Corolla with the 1.8 liter engine, and today we are going to be replacing the passenger side CV axle because it has a vibration during acceleration on at highway speeds. And so I talked about it previously in a couple of my previous videos, and at this particular moment, the current CV axles are aftermarket Cardone axles, and I've had them on this vehicle for roughly 100,000 kilometers, and just this past winter it has started giving me problems. Typically in cold weather the vibration is a lot worse, but as soon as the weather warms up it gets better, but the vibration is still there. And now the reason being is because that the grease inside the inner CV joint, the tripod joints, the grease it thickens in colder weather, and so it's not able to lubricate and to compensate for the wear that's already inside. And so when the weather warms up, the grease it gets less viscous, it loosens up, and so it's able to compensate for some of the wear but not completely, and so that's the reason why that there's a vibration. Now on some aftermarket axles they can be finicky on some cars, and particularly on this vehicle that has unequal lengths axles. The passenger side is the longest side, the driver's side has a shorter axle, and typically the longest axle will usually be more prone to vibration issues. And if you look at the factory axles, the OEM axles that came with the vehicle, you may see a vibration damper, which is a rubber piece, and on the factory ones they have them, but on the aftermarket ones they don't have them. But the aftermarket companies, they have stated that the axles are internally balanced, and so there's no need for a rubber vibration damper. It's just that it's a defect from the manufacturer, the aftermarket manufacturer who designed these axles. So today I'm going to be using the track motive axles because that's what's available at the local parts store, and so hopefully I won't have any issues with these, because some years ago, probably like 7 years ago or something, I installed this on the passenger side, and I had a vibration issue at a certain RPM. So some axles will give you some problems, and they may be finicky. Usually I've had good luck with the Cardone axles because they have improved over the years, and they don't normally give me vibration problems. But the one that's already on the vehicle, it's an older version of the Cardone axles, and so back then they had some issues with the vibration problems. So I'm just going to give the track motive axles a try once again and see what happens. Just make sure that you use a new axle. Do not use remanufactured axles. I've had problems with remanufactured axles, so make sure you get a brand new one, and do not get the cheapest one that you can find. Just get a a regular standard quality axle, and that should last you a long time. So take off the wheel. This is a 21 millimeter. Now on this particular side, this one is a 32 millimeter axle nut. The factory Toyotas, they usually have a 12.30 millimeter axle nut. So in this case, we are going to be using a 32 because it has an aftermarket axle nut on this side. So remove the axle nut. And it's up to you if you want to unstake the axle or not, but usually it will unstake by itself without really damaging the threads in most cases. But we are throwing this axle away anyways, so there's no need to unstake it, but you can if you want. It doesn't matter. A previous work has been done on this, so the axle is going to move freely inside the hub. If you need to, you can use a punch and a hammer, and to hammer against the axle, so that it will be able to move freely. You can use like a center punch of some sort and just hammer against here to help you to get this out. And if you have an air hammer, that's going to make things a whole lot easier. So now you will need to remove the 2 nuts and the 1 bolt. It's a 17. Now you can push or pull down on the control arm and move this on the side. So now that the axle is free, you can remove it from the hub, and just you can let it rest on the control arm just like that. And you can use a bungee cord to tie it against the caliper, and tie it against the jack. Or if you're working on the hoist by chance, you can tie it against the hoist. So this is going to help to get this out of the way, so it's not in the way of the area that you are working. So what's left now? We need to get the axle out of the transmission. So now we are underneath the vehicle. I forgot to mention earlier that it's best to drain the transmission fluid first before you get the axles out, because when you remove the axle, transmission fluid is going to come out. This is the C59 5-speed manual transmission on this Corolla. So this is going to take gear oil. So gear oil is going to come out in this case. If you have an automatic transmission, is going to be different, but the procedure is very similar. So there are all sorts of tools that you can use to remove the axle. You can use a pry bar or something, or a punch. I also have a special slide hammer tool that can be used as well. I'll show you that later in the video. But typically I have something called a bearing race driver punch that I like to use, and in most cases I'm able to get the axle out easily. I also have some other tools like the axle popper tools, and that sometimes works as well. The pry bar method, for me at least, it almost never works for me. So I've been trying to figure the best way to get axles out for many years, and so I figured that the pry bar method, it barely works in a majority of cases, but everybody's going to be different depending on their own experience. So make sure you place a drain pan to catch the transmission fluid, and we are going to get the axle out now. I have a bearing race driver punch, so typically I'll place it on the end here and just hit it with a big hammer, or hit it with your purse if you have one. So we are going to hit it now with the hammer or with your purse on whichever tool you have on hand. Transmission fluid is going to come out. And just remove the axle now out of the way. The transmission fluid is draining now. So now here's the old axle. The inboard joint here is flopping around a lot on the old one, and here's a new axle. Just make sure that everything is the same. The number of splines on both ends, and this one, it comes with a new axle nut. I believe this is also a 32 mil 6-point axle nut. Make sure that the ABS tone ring is installed properly on the aftermarket axles. Otherwise, it is going to give you problems if it's not installed properly. And make sure that everything is intact on the tone ring for the ABS. There isn't anything broken or chipped. And you also want to check, make sure that the C clip is intact as well, and there's no issues with it. This piece is the one in which is going to lock inside the transmission. So make sure everything it looks good and everything is okay. Before we install this, I'm going to be replacing the axle seal, because in my experience, 9 out of 10 times when you remove the old axle and install a new axle, or the same, if you remove and reinstall an axle, is going to damage the seal, the output shaft seal, in a majority of cases, because I've seen a lot of situations in which I did not replace the seal. I installed a new axle, and after 2 or 3 weeks, it's leaking from the seal. Either it's seeping or it's leaking. And so I recommend to replace the axle seals every time you remove an axle out of the transmission. I have 2 axle seals. The smaller one, which is this one, is for the passenger side. Here's the part number, and this is the larger one for the driver's side. I'm going to be doing that in a separate video. So we are going to be removing the old seal and installing the new one. So I won't be able to show everything here, so I will just place the camera in the wheel well area, and I'm going to remove this axle seal first. You need to use an axle seal puller tool, something like this, to remove the axle seal. So we are going to do that. This one is an aftermarket one, so it has like a metal sleeve on the outside, so this one is a bit harder to take out. I have to use a little bit of pressure to remove the seal. So we are just going to wipe down the area to clean it. So I just wanted to mention that before you install the seal, you can put a little bit of petroleum jelly, if you want, on the outside of the seal in which you are going to install it onto the transmission, or a little bit of transmission fluid. If you have a manual transmission, you can use gear oil. If you have an automatic transmission, you can use automatic transmission fluid. So I'm just using the Vaseline petroleum jelly, which is safe to use. It's petroleum based. It will not do any harm. It will just dissolve with the fluid, so it's safe to use. So you can lubricate the outside portion in which is going to seat inside the transmission, just to make installation easier. So what we need to do, what we are going to do, is to get this in here slightly by hand first. I do have a bunch of seal installers and stuff, but I don't normally like to use them for these types of seals because they almost never work for me. So usually I just use a 1/4 inch extension, and I tap evenly all across. I lightly tap all across. I'm just trying to line this up evenly first by hand before you start topping it in. So you can use a couple extensions, 1/4 inch extensions, and tap lightly with a small hammer all around on the outer part of the seal. If you need to do it through the wheel well area, which is going to be a bit more difficult to do, you can if you want to. So just keep doing that and keep on tapping around and feel lightly with your fingers that it's flush all around. May need to repeat the procedure, but being careful, you only need to tap very lightly. You don't need to strike it very hard. Otherwise, you may damage the transmission case. So just be very careful. You just need to lightly tap it. That's it. So off camera, I tapped in the seal. Now we are ready to install the new axle. So I just use a small ball peen hammer and a couple of 1/4 inch extensions. That's all you need. I do have some axle seal installer tools, but they never work with these types of seals. And this is the bearing race driver punch I use to knock out the axle. I think a 4-pound hammer. So that's that. One thing I want to advise you is to not use these aftermarket axle seals that have the metal sleeve on the outside, because number one, they are difficult to install, and number two, they often leak. So I've never really had any good luck with this, but for some reason I was lucky when I installed this. When I had the transmission removed the last time, I replaced the clutch on this, and so for some reason the seal was still okay, but I wanted to replace it anyways, because every time you install a new axle, there's always the possibility of damaging the existing seals. So always use new seals when you install an axle. So just a quick tip for you guys, if you want to make your job easy to install the axle seal on the passenger side, I'm leaning like this in order to install the seal. It's gonna be easier. So I have some more room to work on this side. So this is how I position myself if you're working on the driveway or in the garage on the floor to install the seal. So once you're done, just make sure everything is flush all around the transmission. You can feel with your fingers to see if it's flush. It does not have to be 100% perfect, but it has to be done properly. So you can use your fingers to feel all around the transmission to see if it's flush all the way through, and then you should be all good to go to install the new axle now. So just some quick tips. I always like to use a petroleum jelly on the end of the splines, in which it goes into the transmission. So that's what I like to use. I've had an instructor, automotive instructor from many years ago. Unfortunately, he's passed away now. I heard recently he's passed away. And so this instructor, he was an engines and transmissions instructor. So he was a one-of-a-kind teacher. And so he told the class that he uses petroleum jelly on transmission parts, and it's safe to use petroleum jelly on axle splines and stuff. It's petroleum based, so it will not do any harm. It's going to dissolve with the transmission fluid, and you should be okay. It's petroleum based once again, so it will not do any harm. So when you install this in, it's just going to make installation easier, and could also make removal easier for future uses. So again, I'm going to use some more petroleum jelly to lubricate the splines, and it will make the C-clip go in easier. One thing I wanted to mention is the C-clip. When you're installing it into the transmission, it's a good idea to have the C-clip positioned, the opening position in the 6 o'clock position, so that the outer piece will not hang outwards if you install it in the 12 o'clock or in a different position due to gravity. So you want the opening to be positioned downwards so that the C-clip is inside the opening and it's not hanging down. This is going to make installation easier. So I can show you on the old axle, you see the opening of the C-clip. So you want to put that at the bottom, at the 6 o'clock position, so that it will be easier to install into the transmission. You don't have to, but it just makes installation easier. So now we are going to install the new axle. You want to make sure it's lined up perfectly straight before you push it in. You want to push the axle inwards once you know it's lined up perfectly to get it in. Just trying to turn it to line it up still. You may need to go under the vehicle to get it straight. It's not perfectly lined up, so it's not going to go in. Make sure it's perfectly straight. There we go. It's locked into place now. So now the axle is inside the transmission. The grease you see around there is just the excess grease from the petroleum jelly. Now on this side, you want to lubricate with some wheel bearing or chassis grease. So you can use any type of grease, it doesn't matter. So just lubricate the splines, and you want to lubricate inside the hub as well. Initially, you want to clean inside the hub if there's any dirt or debris first before you put any grease. But I I did a wheel bearing the other day on this side, so it's already cleaned out, so there's no need to clean anything. I'm just going to put some grease all across the splines so that it won't seize up in the future and that everything goes in smoothly. You don't need to put too much, but if you put too much, it'll just ooze out the excess. So there's already some grease inside the hub, so we're just going to install this in the hub now. We're going to remove the bungee cord out of the way, install the axle into the hub. And at the same time, you will need to line up the lower ball joint and the steering knuckle at the same time. So we need to line everything up at the same time. The lower ball joint. There we go. Get the axle in. Hand tighten first, and we're just going to use an 80 foot-pound torque stick just to drive it through, and then we'll torque it after. So we're just going to use a torque stick just to run this through, and then we'll torque it with the torque wrench after we're all done. So now we just need to reinstall the lower ball joint, 2 nuts and 1 bolt. The torque spec for this is 66 foot-pounds. Just to lightly run the bolt through, and then now we are going to torque this, and then we are going to torque the axle nut, clean everything up, and then that's going to be it. Don't forget to top up the transmission fluid afterwards. So the torque spec here is 66. So insert a punch or a chisel. Torque spec is 156. It's 159 foot-pounds. I'm not sure if I said 156. Torque spec is 159 foot-pounds. So once you're done, you can stake the axle nut. You don't need to stake it too much, just a tiny bit. So stake the axle nut, and that should be it. So stake the axle nut so that it doesn't back off in the future. You don't need to stake it too much, only a tiny bit, and that should be good. just enough so that to prevent it from backing off. So that's going to be it. Just clean the brake rotor. If in any case you got any dirt or grease, clean it with brake cleaner. And reinstall the wheel. The torque spec for the wheel is 76 foot-pounds. And that should be it for this video. Just don't forget to fill up the transmission fluid before you take off. So I forgot to mention earlier that I do have other tools and stuff. I have a whole bunch of things. I only use them on when I need them. I have a axle puller slide hammer with an attachment. This is a Kentmore tool for the limited access Toyota axles, typically on the driver's side only, usually. And so that's the part number. This helps to get in behind, to get the axle out. This slide hammer is an OTC slide hammer, and it came with an adapter here. But the adapter that it came with, the fitting is too small to get in behind the axle, so you're not able to get in behind here. You see the open end is too small to get behind inside here. Unless you have a larger diameter opening, then you'll be able to get in behind the axle here. So this part is the transmission side, the inboard CV joint. So this adapter is not going to work, but this one will. And typically, the way you place it over is to get it onto the notch. There's the indentation on the back of the notches, and that's going to pull back on it. And if your axle does not have any of those notches, you can still put it onto the back of the housing itself, and to pull the axle out. And that's how this tool works. So that's going to conclude this video for the replacement of the passenger side CV axle on this 2010 Corolla. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please don't forget to give it a like, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you're not already a subscriber, and please don't forget to hit that bell notification if you haven't done so. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day and take care.